My brother and business partner and I, Barry, have been running an instructional design agency. We actually just recently shut it down, called Bright Sparks. And our payoff line was, we put ideas in people's heads. And probably our proudest achievement in all that time is that we never once wrote a textbook. It's our belief that the purpose of education is to teach you not what to think, but how to think. And so we were always in search for new and better ways to package knowledge, to make the ideas more accessible and more useful to the kids and the adults who used our products. And a couple of years ago, we decided that we were going to try to turn everything we had learned into software. And so we designed this application called Cognician. And Cognician is an app that helps you think. And it does this by asking you intelligent, insightful questions, thought-provoking questions. And we collect these questions together in little bundles that we call cogs, and a cog is designed to help you think through a particular problem. And throughout the entire process of designing all these products that we built while we were Bright Sparks, and in the process of developing Cognician, we learned a few things about what it is that makes a really great thinker. And the first thing that a great thinker does is they take time to think. And they don't just take a lot of time, they take really quality time. So how many of you in the audience in the last week have carved off 20 minutes of uninterrupted time to think about something specific? And that means no Facebook, Twitter, email. That's one word. No other interruptions, the phone goes off the hook, and you just take quiet pocket of solitude to think about something specific. Anyone? Okay, the house lights are a little bright in my face, so I can't really tell, but I could tell it wasn't the whole audience. A truly great thinker will take a lot of time and good quality time to focus on the thing that they're thinking about. The second thing that a great thinker will probably do is they will take the time to figure out what it is that they're thinking about, and they'll identify that very clearly. And a good analogy for this is a map. A map has different levels of resolution depending on how close you want to get to a problem. So if you were using this map to find your way to a petrol station, then you're going to run out of petrol. What you need is a greater level of resolution, a greater understanding of the problem that you're dealing with. You need more clarity, you need more detail. And the third thing, and perhaps this is the most important thing that a great thinker has, is lots of concepts. Not just many of them, but relevant ones. And they're able to pick out relevant ones. It's like having a quiver full of arrows that you can fire off according to different situations. And one of the ideas that Barry and I have toyed around with for quite some time is that everybody knows about the digital divide in the country. It's a phrase you hear quite often, but what you don't often hear is the idea of the cognitive divide. And imagine somebody growing up in a township. They don't live in a house full of magazines and books, and the kinds of conversations that they're exposed to are not the people that are moving through the house, so blue-collar workers. They're not exposed to lots of different ideas. And so they end up in a state of what we call malcognition. They don't have a lot of concepts to think about. They don't have a lot of different ideas to bring to bear on the different kinds of problems that they experience. The picture that I've chosen to illustrate this is Raphael's School of Athens. And one of the reasons I chose this is that it's got this wonderful anachronism of having all these great, powerful thinkers in the room together. You've got Aristotle and Socrates and Plato and Pythagoras. And imagine that this meeting actually did happen, besides its anachronism, and it was hit. The room was hit by a meteor. The Dark Ages would have started instantly, and nobody would have been around to tap into the legacy they left behind to turn the lights back on. So when you think of these three things together, what really makes or constitutes powerful thought? You've got time, you've got context, and you've got concepts. And at the point at which time and concepts overlap, you've got abstract philosophy. Abstract ideas that don't apply to very real or specific situations, at least not yet, not until you bring a context to them, not until you try to apply them to something specific. At the point at which time and context overlap, you've got stream of consciousness. The flood of connected, sometimes unconnected ideas that run through your mind. And this is the kind of thing you do when you're daydreaming. It's blissful. It's not very useful, it's blissful. unless you're James Joyce, and then you write a big fat book, and then people study it for years and years, and they still don't know what he's talking about. And at the point at which concepts and context overlap, you've got story. Just a specific moment in time, a specific idea. This reminds me of, I actually wasn't going to talk about this because I think it's a little bit weird, but anyway, when I was 11 years old, I had an epiphany. I was reading 1984, which is odd for an 11-year-old, and I looked up at the bookshelf alongside me, and I'd remembered that I was reading Animal Farm a little while before, and I realized that both these books were about ideas. And when I looked up at the bookshelf, I thought, all of them must be about ideas too. And I fell in love with that idea. I thought that, that people can go to this elaborate trouble to write a story. Sometimes they do it in pictures, and sometimes they do it in movies, and sometimes they do it in books. But all of these ideas are so powerful and so useful to us, and they make such an impression on our humanity. And I decided to spend the rest of my life reading them all. So when I left high school, I embarked upon a 4-year degree and just picked courses where I could read absolutely everything I could get my hands on, which I highly recommend to anyone, by the way. At the point where these three things overlap, where you've got time and concepts and a clear context, that's the point at which you have deep, focused thought. If I showed you Benel and Justin, I was going to say, just two random people, but, since Omar and Opa are sitting on the stoop for us over there, then which one do you think is thinking harder than the other one right now? The only right answer, I think, is probably that you can't really tell. It's so easy to hide behind a veil of our countenance and just, not think deeply about something. But the two greatest capacities that mankind has, to think and to love, the ability to be able to recognize the humanity of somebody else, have true empathy for them, show affection for them, and then the ability to be able to reason intelligently about really complicated things. So that's why this is important, because you owe it to yourself as a human being. You owe it to your spouse to think deeply about your relationship, to carve out the time to think about truly valuable ideas that are going to impact on both of you, and to be very clear about what it is that's important to you, that context. You owe it to your clients when you create products for them. We've all had the experience of running out of time and going, look, I know this is not really good enough, but it'll pass. The truth is, it's not good enough. You owe it to think deeply for your clients. You owe it to think deeply for your colleagues. You owe it to think deeply for your employees. It's so easy to shirk the responsibility to think. So how do you actually achieve this? How do you achieve this state of deep, focused thought? And what is it? What's the characteristic that separates a really great thinker at any time in conversation or in that deep, focused thought time? What's the characteristic that separates them from everyone else? And there are many different ways to describe this, but in keeping with the theme of the conference, I've chosen the most used phrase. I'd love to see a word cloud of the day, going with the flow. It's true. Great thinkers don't judge quickly. When they encounter a new idea, something strange, they don't fight it. They don't, in a brainstorming session, for example, while people are throwing ideas around, they don't bang a gavel and say, we're not doing that. We're not going there. They allow themselves, they suspend judgment, they tolerate the ambiguity of these conflicting ideas. They learn to be comfortable with the paradox, and they go with the flow. They, as Aristotle pointed out a couple of thousand years ago, it's the mark of an educated mind to be able to entertain a thought without accepting it. And that is what going with the flow is. It's listening to somebody, not judging, reserving that judgment, having the respect to hear somebody out, having the respect for ideas to be able to entertain a thought before you make and pronounce judgment. Not easy. It's much easier when somebody comes up to you with an idea that you hate to want to kick them in the nuts and just get rid of them. But you can't do that always for many, many reasons. How do you actually not pronounce judgment? How do you suspend that judgment and entertain the thought without accepting it? And the answer is that you ask questions incessantly. And what's so special about a question, really? It's just a sentence with a squiggly punctuation mark at the end of it, isn't it? Not quite so much. Because when you ask a question, you keep your mind open to new possibilities. When you pronounce judgment on something, when you make a statement, when you pronounce an imperative, you close the opportunity that your mind has to explore a new idea. So if you can for just a split second, the next time somebody raises an idea that you're not perhaps so comfortable with, just for a split second, hold off the desire to kick them in the nuts and instead ask a question. Just one question, any question. I've got a couple of questions here from the framework of critical thinking that you'll find quite useful, probably. What's their purpose? What are their objectives? What are the relevant questions I should be asking about this? What are the context-specific questions? What information should I consider? What is the data available on this? Where's the evidence? I know every fiber of my being is telling me to shut this whole thing down and just go with what I think, because that's so much easier. But ask just another question. What conclusions can I draw? What are the assumptions that are being made by the other person and by me? What are the relevant concepts? There must be ideas around here that I should be exploring. What are the points of view I should think about? Not always your own point of view is the right one. What are the different points of view that are available on the subject? What are the implications? Where is this thought actually going to take me? If I entertain this thought, where am I going to end up? Where's the river going to flow with me on it? And that's one whole group of questions. Then there's a whole different kind of question you could ask, an imaginative question. My favorite question in the history of the world: what would it be like if my mic fell off my head? To ride on a beam of light. And we all know what that produced. Einstein's theory of relativity, the special theory of relativity, and a falling mic. Can you still hear me when it's hanging off? Another kind of imaginative question. I'm reverse engineering the film Inception. What if you could plant an idea in someone's mind in a dream? Reverse engineering the success of Google's innovation. What if we allowed our staff to work a day per week on their own stuff? Any great idea can be reverse engineered as a question, and then it becomes a useful concept that you can put in your quiver, bring out at the appropriate time, and bring to bear on a challenge that you're facing. My challenge to you is to identify what those really powerful questions are. Over the next few days, I'd really appreciate it if you could mail me, patrick@cognition.com, or tweet @cognition.com with the hashtag TEDxCapeTown. Any question that you think is powerful and insightful, I'll take it and I'll build it into a Cognition cog, a little app to help you think, and then we'll release it as the sort of TEDx zeitgeist of the day. Thanks very much.